Welcome to 36. We have our guest, little bonsai friend. Anywho, well, we're going to try to get this thing done. We're going to finish this thing today. We are going to be done. I can't wait to get to fiction. I can't wait to get to another Zen Master. I can't wait to edit the titles of all of my playlists and all the descriptions and all those fun things I have to do just to prepare for the day. Just the day. Alright, I'm sorry. We'll goofy again. I'm trying to be hyped. I'm on my fourth cup of coffee since I've been awake this morning. So let's use this energy. Get this book read. Okay. Continuing the chapter about the professionals at work, we have the psychotherapy. The tools of traditional psychiatry. Drug regimes, and physical treatments such as electric shock therapy are eschewed by very many modern practitioners of the art of emotional healing. Drugs, they say, are simply palliatives, not cures for mental illness, designed to get people functioning again, but not designed to elicit the emotional problems which caused the breakdown in the first place. Psychotherapy, on the other hand, works to free a patient to face and resolve his real underlying problems, to experience a crisis and then come through it instead of deadening the agony with drugs. Psychotherapy, then, is the treatment of choice for the liberal-minded doctor. In a free and critical environment, with his doctor's support, the patient can truly come to terms with himself. Or can he? Many researchers have shown that psychotherapy is in fact a coercive process. The most acceptable form of coercion, perhaps, but it's no less coercive for it. In 1955, President Rosenthal published a study in the Changes. Rosenthal published a study called Changes in Some Moral Values Following Psychotherapy in a psychological journal. He was able to show that patients who were rated as having improved by their therapists had during therapy changed their values in areas such as sex, aggression, and authority in the direction of those held by their therapists on such matters. Perry London comments on the occurrence in behavior control. Quoting, "There is some evidence in research reports that patients tend to identify with their therapists, gradually developing similar personal values. It is no wonder that they should, for no matter how tentatively he approaches the patient, nor how pure his motive not to control or dominate, the insight therapist cannot help address what himself he considers the most salient material presented to him. Eventually, the patient's ideas of salience must largely correspond to his, or the interaction cannot continue. What is more, the inherent balance in the relationship, where one person is always helping and the other receiving help, makes the patient look up to the therapist as a potential authority, model, or inspiration, no matter how little he knows of the therapist's outside life. Almost inevitably, he knows plenty about the therapist's attitudes towards the things that count most in his own life, and it is as those attitudes that he is most likely to absorb." One explanation for this effect has already been given in Chapter 4. The therapist unconsciously conditions the patient's response by nodding approval to certain things he says and ignoring or expressing mild disapproval of others. In this way, He guides the patients toward the areas he himself thinks valuable to talk about and to concentrate on words or actions which have importance for him. It is an old joke, and it's a true one, that patients of Jungian therapists dream Jungian dreams, while the patients of Freudian therapists faithfully produce Freudian ones. Sargent sees the anxiety which a patient brings with him to psychotherapy as has exasperated during therapy as part of a self-discovery process, as the vital element which, by building up to a level of intolerable stress, creates suggestibility in the patient. As he describes psychoanalysis, a patient may have to lie on the couch perhaps daily for months, free associating on whatever comes to his mind. The therapist may then pick up on particular words and say, "What does ladder mean to you? What significance does the word nurse have for you?" If the words are found to hold some sexual significance, the patient is then invited to go back over his past in that area and relive all and any incidents which aroused equivalent anxiety, anger, guilt, fear, etc. As some of the incidents may have happened in childhood and had been repressed until now, because they are so anxiety-inducing, the patient suffers ever-mounting stress and discomfort. The effort of reliving and re-experiencing is also exhausting. As the tension increases, so does the patient's dependence on his therapist, and as his initial resistance to the latter's interpretations of his actions is worn down, boom. There should have been a period, not a leading up to a comma. And his initial resistance to the latter's interpretations of his actions is worn down. The patient comes to accept and act upon theories about his personal condition, which may well be at variance with what he has already believed. He achieves an insight. Here, let's do have a pause. I know I haven't paused to comment in quite a few videos. It's because I'm trying to refine my style. I don't know why. Probably to hopefully keep my people interested. Okay. I totally agree that the patient will come to and act upon theories of his personal condition, and he may even have this cognitive dissonance because he's at variance with what he already knows or believes about himself and what it is. And then for the patient who thinks differently than the doctor, we have got that former bias that we spoke of a while back about the young psychiatrist who has his own idea, but he has to suppress it so that he could grow in his field. Well, the newbie can't be right, the patient can't be right, and therefore the patient will succumb to the knowledge and the knowing of that he puts onto his doctor for the sake of lead me out of my own personal hell. So, but let's put it this way, or say what I want to say this way. I have read all the symptoms of all the various diseases that you could attain. I have lined myself up with several features. So any one of these things could be true about me, right? I've got ADHD. No, you don't. Yes, do. Shh. I've got DID. You never dissociate. Yes, I do sometimes. Well, you always know you're there, so you're not just. Oh, shh. I have schizophrenia. Not when everything you says makes sense and rounds around in a circle. You've got it completely under control. I have whatever, right? I'm autistic. Oh, okay, whatever. When you put these labels on yourself, and then you start to judge your own mental actions and mechanics by these things, or you just go right into the, oh, I'm not responsible for anything I do, so I can get away with all kinds of bad behavior. Oh, I can't help it. I'm schizophrenic. I can't keep my thoughts straight. I'm ADHD. I can't discipline my mind. It's impossible. I've got borderline personality disorder. Everything I do just can't advance past the emotional level of 5 years old, and I'll never change. That's why I don't like these I don't like these labels. Because at the end of the day, you are a conscious being. You are a conscious being. That's why I like Buddhism. Buddhism teaches that there is a path to the effortless control of your own mind. But that's why I can't understand psychology, because I can't understand how I can see a way, and then the person who is suffering like real paranoids, real delusions that have him crawling under a chair because they're so real to him, how could he not come to self-awareness? How does that get broken? I don't know. That's why psychology has always fascinated me. But, so what I'm saying is the patient may come to accept and therefore transfer the things he could work on into symptoms. And when they become symptoms, he can dismiss them. So I think this is how the psychology is doing a disservice to healing. But I don't have an education, and I don't have any authority, and I don't have any psychologists who watch my channel who can go, you might be onto something, let's talk it out. Because that is a paranoid delusion I'm having. Life is so fun. Okay, I guess that's enough of a sidebar. I told you. Stories about the subtle shaping of behavior during therapy abound. One woman was asked by her analyst whether she found herself looking between men's legs as she traveled on the London Tube. The woman said no. On her way home, she found herself staring between the legs of men sitting opposite of her on the train, and carried on doing so whenever she got on a train after. The therapist probably would have said that she always wanted to sneak a peek, and until now the desire had been repressed. Others might say he had suggested an idea which took hold and became a habit. Frank says that the very nature of psychotherapy attracts people who will best respond to it, i.e., those who readily adapt their behavior according to subtle direction. People who go to psychotherapy are those who have problems which result from their ability to respond to other people in an emotional way. They are touched by their relationships with partner, parents, or colleagues to such an extent that they react emotionally to the interpersonal problems that arise, and in a way that induces sufficient stress to warrant treatment. They are therefore highly susceptible to interpersonal influences, including those emanating from the analyst. There is evidence, says Frank, that suggestible people tend to stay in treatment longer than less suggestible people. Those who opt to enter therapy not because of any immediate distress which is affecting their lives, but because of a calm wish to explore themselves more fully, do less well in therapy. Me, I sure as hell probably wouldn't do well in therapy, but god damn it, can't I have a few psychologist friends? Little buddies, anybody want to write a book? Oh, never mind. Delusion of grandeur. See, if I can be aware of it, why can't you? Fix yourselves. Never mind. No, I'm not starting this whole thing over and rereading this whole chapter again. I tried to read this chapter. I was sitting in my game. I was like, oh my god, it's just Blizzard in the Long Dark, which is my favorite game. One of my favorites. And I'm just sitting there going, well, all I'm going to do is sit here and wait out the rain, the blizzard. And most of the time I'd just pick up a Zen book and just read to myself, pretend like I'm meditating, But I said, nah, I wonder if I can read this chapter while we both watch the blizzard. So I got 4 minutes of that. I would sure like to know if anybody would want to see it. Because, we might be able to combine the long dark and reading books by campfire. It's a vibe. Oh my gosh. Okay. Frank also suggests that therapists to go out of their way to make no responses that could influence the client's ability to express themselves fully and freely may in actuality be exerting more influence than their less restrained colleagues. Frank says, the therapist's steadfast refusal to assume active leadership tends to create an ambiguous situation for the patient, who has only a vague idea of what he is supposed to do. How long is he to keep it up, and how will he know when he's finished? In response to the patient's attempts to gain clarification, the therapist does nothing at all to make or may make non-committal encouraging sounds or ask non-committal questions. The resulting uncertainty of the situation may enhance its influencing powers. Everyone constantly tries to form some stabilized and clear assumption by which to guide his behavior. Therefore, a person in an ambiguous situation is bound to try to clarify it. That is, to assume the initiative in trying to find out what is expected of him, and to do it. To the extent that a person cannot unable to construct a clear set of expectations in the situation, he tends to look to others for direction. This may explain the finding that confusion increases suggestibility. In evocative therapy, the patients tend to scrutinize the therapist for clues as to what is expected of him may be heightened by his belief that relief from his suffering depends on his doing or saying the right thing. Therefore, the patient, in his desperate search for clues, is acutely aware of every movement the therapist makes. He unconsciously uses the therapist's own body language to help him construct a picture of how he should be performing. Other social forces are also playing their role in the therapist-patient relationship. The patient has chosen to come to the therapist. Therefore, he has imbued the therapist with a certain degree of power. He believes the therapist can help him, and has the knowledge and experience to do so. The therapist is an expert. The patient's ingrained duty to obey and respect people in authority makes him unwilling to cross the therapist or to forfeit his approval. In one sense, psychotherapists have a power akin to that of cult leaders, because they are not concerned with the realm of the rational and approvable. Their statements cannot be disproved, and therefore comfortably rejected. A therapist can say, your unconscious is making you do such and such, or, in your unconscious mind you feel such and such, and the patient's conscious mind cannot plausibly show that to be untrue. A cult leader can say, you will only come to understand if you believe such and such, and the confused follower will never be sure whether he would have reached enlightenment or if he had followed the route prescribed. Both patient and follower have to make judgments about whether they are going to go along with such interpretations, which pertain to the irrational. But they only have their rational minds with which to make their judgment. Their only option, therefore, is to believe or not believe. The patient in psychotherapy is provided with a safe environment in which to confess the secrets of his guilty past. But even more powerful is the confession made in a group therapy where, as his reward, the patient experiences the admiration, approval, and warmth of the other members of his group. In an encounter group, for instance, each member may have his or her turn to work through some emotional block. One man may have felt hostility toward his mother for years, and he can't understand it, because she has always been supportive and warm, with his best interests at heart. Persuaded at last to pretend that his mother is the pillow, and he is handed that which he is handed, and to thump that pillow and let his real feelings out, he discovers that he hates her because she never let him learn his own way and make mistakes for himself. I'm sorry, son. I'm sorry, daughter. Oh, it's true. Try not to. Don't hate me anymore. Anyway, if my kids feel the need to hate me, I probably deserve it. It reminds me I have to make videos with just telling stories. And we have to work on that when we talk on the phone, to try to remember the good times. Hell, remember any of the times. If you remember any of the times, you'll learn and grow. That's my fantasy. To be able to do it healthy. Have a family. A healthy family. But you know what? There's probably no such thing. We are all dysfunctional. It's probably my bad wrong to be a perfectionist. Anyway, we're going to stop this video and I'm going to come right back. So let's see. So let's finish this sentence anyway. He discovers that he hates her because she never let him learn his own way and make mistakes for himself. She was always there protecting him. When his outburst is over, he feels freed from a huge burden. Bright-eyed, the rest of the group congratulate him on becoming himself at last. All right.